many satsangs, always the same underlying message. And the underlying message is simple. Everything points that it is complex, complicated, and it goes through the layers of the mind and this and that. And this is where a lot of conversation unfolds. But looking at in simple terms, the first steps, the first steps are the most important. And the first steps should aim at becoming the best seeker of truth that you can be, developing humility above all, and those divine qualities. But simultaneously to that, applying your time with the thirst for liberation into meditation, intense meditation. Because these two, they are the ones who will guarantee that you'll find the narrow path, the straight path, nothing else. Not your present reality, because your present reality is about your misconceptions. It may have brought you this far, it cannot take you further. So only that which assures that in the long run you'll be growing, refining your understanding, purifying your heart and mind. That's the only thing that will really enable you to see a different, brighter tomorrow with better perspectives, spiritual perspectives of the narrow path. When you have these two and you are embracing this intensely with your life on it, looking at things from the highest perspective, it is that which paves your way. Because the most profound spiritual experience observed by someone from the outside, it may be the most ridiculous thing or bad thing or whatever. It has many interpretations. And they are all real from their perspective. And you will get that which you embrace. So aiming always at the highest, choosing light, love, trust, surrender. This plus the previous two will keep you, and you'll remain more and more on that narrow path. And once you're on that path, intensely, sincerely, eventually it will open up and it starts. So if you haven't felt this push, then probably other values have been mixed with the quest for truth, and not the best choices were made. Or you're just starting. So this is the basic, the most important aspects, because this brings the rest. And in the absence of this, it brings nothing. It's just mental concepts, lucid experiences, or an infinite number of possibilities, but no life in that process. Everyone imagines that they're worthy, it's coming for them, and people can understand to a certain extent that yes, you need to work a lot, it's intense, others don't even reach this far, but even those who understand that it needs to work a lot, and the word sacrifice and all of this, still they don't understand the depth, the intensity that it reaches. But it goes much beyond what you can expect. So the advice is work hard and prepare yourself to gain stamina, to continue to embrace the challenges. Because without it, if it starts, which is difficult on its own, if it starts, then it's best for you to be prepared to take it and to grow with it instead of crumbling from it. I will answer your question now. Namaste, Guruji. Since last satsang, I've been working on deepening in my meditation. Every chance I have in my day became a meditation, and I feel like I'm conquering some behaviors. I'm getting close to the knots inside my mind and even be one with it. But immediately the next day or two, I find myself in front of a big wave of resistance to anything, especially meditation or even watching a satsang. I go to work and find myself unwillingly involving in lower conversations and gossip, which I hate. So it seems the more I deepen inside, the more disturbance happens to my outside life. Is there anything you would like to share? Well, this is what I've been talking a lot and a lot, and I'm sure that if you go through the satsangs that are in the channel already, I'm sure that there's nothing that hasn't been answered so far. So, whenever you start with a serious intent, of course, a wave of resistance rise up. If it's not rising, it's because that quest is aligned with worldly goals. It is aligned with the quest for well-being. It is an undertaking to improve your reality, is a mind project. And for the seeker of truth, why does the seeker of truth has to silence his mind? Because it's not a mental enterprise. There's a calling from the heart that will guide also, but the mind has to step aside and it will be challenged, of course. But as you take up a serious intent, resistance will rise, your resistances. They can be from outside also, but that's a different question. But even the outside ones, they reveal themselves in a way which is aligned more or less on the fields of possibilities which lay inside of you. So if apart from liberation, quest for liberation, you still have other possibilities, they will reveal like that in that context, creating new possibilities. But it is unavoidable. The structures of your world will do whatever it takes. And in the beginning, they won't be so grotesque, so aggressive, because there's some things that it hopes to gain. But as the real game begins, which is lose, 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 and when you think there's nothing else to lose, you will lose more, then your mind starts rebelling, bringing animosity, disturbing, twisting whatever you have been living. And once that which was bright as sun becomes dark as night, just because you're not being entertained in the way that you expected, and you're in the lose, 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 not gain, 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 gain. And this is a mechanism to self-preservation. There are many like this different, there are many, many infinite mechanisms of self-preservation. And only when things become more serious do they come. We see this in human relationships. People go into a relationship full of expectations, then those expectations become frustrated. But the hope that it will become true according to the expectation maintains that relationship longer and longer. But when those expectations cease, the other one just becomes a monster or something like that, and or a useless or whatever it justifies to keep the boat in the same direction. And when your spiritual practice still keeps on happening despite the rest, a balance needs to be created. So if your practice takes you 2 steps forward, then the next day or the other day you need to go back to where you were, 2 steps backward, either through resisting it, either through forgetting about it. It's very difficult. Even your experiences, your insights, your spiritual insights that you have many times, they disappear. Your mind forgets them purposely, on purpose. So even this, which appears to be very simple, something which is very important in a spiritual experience you had, an insight that is very important. If it is really important, your mind will for sure forget about it. This is why you need to write it and to put it in a place where you can see it, because your mind will forget about it. It's threatening. It will forget it. And I have seen this many times. Probably most of you have experienced this. It was so clear, the experience or the insight, and then you want to access it and blank, complete blank. It's not there. So as you have the thirst for liberation, the calling, and you are intensifying your level best, your spiritual practices, you will see clearly all resistances rising. And it's up to you. I see many times questionings coming here. And it's like there's almost a need for, it's like you want me to convince you, either if it's possible or if it's worthy um, or whatever. But in the end, it's up to you. And if you don't find that strength, well, it's because you don't really want to. I have to put it this way. Many experience this, oh, I tried my level, but I'm not able to. And when I say it's because you don't want to, people tend to get sometimes offended even because they think that I'm questioning their goodwill. But it's not the case. Everybody finds the necessary strength when motivations are aligned with the highest. When you are really embracing and willing to sacrifice whatever for your quest for liberation. Either you have the strength or it will be given to you. But those who are looking for it, really, they find it. I've seen this both happening. Seekers finding it from nothing and finding it and finding it and finding it. Others with a lot, with everything around them, losing themselves. And the circumstances may be different, but the underlying questions are the same. So this is, despite your best intentions, either you recognize that you are your only obstacle and that you will do anything in your power to remove yourself from serious spiritual practice, spiritual discipline, or you will not stand a chance. And as you are pushing to intensify, obstacles will be clear, your resistances will be clear, and as they get clear, you can go over them, if that's really your intention. And this gets revealed with your choices. Je vais répondre à ta question. Well, the first question, I will just say, that's not it. Second question, interesting question. Dear Shima, another question. You call for great humility to follow the quest. And given the magnitude of the task at hand, yes, radical humility is essential. But doesn't it take an ounce of pretension to affirm, I want to achieve this union with the divine? Are fierce will and humility compatible? With all my gratitude. Yes, of course. Look, it can be pretension if it's not a real calling, if it is, or if it is a real calling that was hijacked by worldly greed. So that can be a pretension. And it is a pretension for those who imagine this. I heard so many things till this day. They're dreaming with self-realization and has it stands as a place that they will get exalted and they will be higher than others and all of this. And yes, coming from this or others that want to save the world, to make the world a better place, all beautiful words, but not compatible with actions. With motivations, it's more important because actions cannot be understood. It's always about motivations. So with the wrong set of motivations, yes, it can be pretension, but in the presence of the calling. Quest for truth is not something, the one who has the calling, it's not about having pretension or not. He will follow it. And if he doesn't gain humility, he will not move forward. Simple as that. And thirst will be there, creating restlessness. And no matter how much force you have or you can develop, without humility, it worths nothing. Because that's the level of the challenges, worldly challenges. The higher your ego is, usually, the better to go over them. But in this case, either there's magic involved or there's no magic involved. And let magic can come and then disappear. I've seen this many times also. So as it comes, without that respect, that humility, and the surrender, it goes away, and then it's like it never happened. But usually, this type of question, my dear, let me tell you why this question arises. This type of question arises because of attachments to worldly life, attachments to the life of the character, and wanting to maintain that. So first, there is this thirst in a way of improving this life, bringing things, colors to this life through spirituality. But then, as it gets confronted with the possibilities of losing that which is precious, then the questioning of the quest in itself starts to try to dismantle it. And what's left is always the same. And for sure, that which was precious all along. So depending from where you're coming from, it can be a pretension. But these questions as, oh, do I have to leave everything? Isn't it pretentious to do that? It's usually in those that need to preserve their worldly life. And the mind works in that direction. Just observe where your mind puts solutions and where your mind puts difficulties and obstacles. Well, where your mind is putting obstacles and difficulties, that's what the mind doesn't want. Where your mind is putting solutions, creating solutions despite the level of the problems, of the apparent problems, that's what your mind wants. So, arguments, they are meaningless. What counts is, what is the goal you're trying to achieve? What is the goal your mind is trying to achieve? Because the arguments it is using, the logic that is using, is always motivation based. And according to that motivation, your speech changes. So that's really irrelevant. What's relevant is your mind trying to facilitate and creating solutions, or is it creating obstacles, trying to deny it? And from this perspective, you can have a better vision of what's really going on. Then after having the vision, you have a choice, either to agree with it and continue, or tackle the situation at its core. Because when you're aligning yourself with highest values, lower values will be there still, attachment to them will be there. And these higher values, they are a guide for you to reflect, analyze, and then act upon it. And this is what really makes the difference. So in worldly life, the highest you want to achieve in worldly goals, the greatest must be your dedication to it. Well, the highest goal in worldly terms is not even compared to the goal of liberation. So, sharing your time amongst many things just keeps it all at an invisible pace, so slow that becomes invisible. So, if you have the calling in your heart, the calling for liberation, trying to bring the qualities of the best seeker of truth, intensifying your meditation as much as possible. And this means that the time you spend in meditation will be enter in conflict with the time you use in other things. One will win, the other one will lose. And the one who accumulates more winnings will succeed eventually. And those who look always to the highest reach the highest. Mental impurities are there, they will have to come out. But if you embrace with them, if you dance with them, if you mixture with them, they will not go out. Okay. So next satsang will be probably Saturday, 9:30 in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, make the best use of your time. Make it real. Much.